there, it's good to have you here with us. This is Tigrai Television. I'm Salome Tigrai, and I'll be reading the news for today. You may watch the news live on your television screens as well as on our social media platforms, YouTube and Facebook. And now the details. Eritrean forces have launched a full-scale attack on multiple fronts this morning. In a statement this afternoon, Tigray Central Command said Eritrean troops have amassed their forces along Takaza River all the way to Irob areas in Eastern Tigray. The command also stated that the Ethiopian National Defense Forces Eastern Command and a larger part of the 3 commander divisions of Northwestern Command, as well as thousands of Amhara forces and Fano Vigilante Group, have joined the Eritrean army in the attack. The command said that the Eritrean army, along with Ethiopian and Amhara forces, has launched these offensives in retaliation to its losses on Tsalamti and Maikuhlan fronts a few days ago. The statement highlighted that this morning, the Eritrean-led joint forces have launched a full-scale offensive on the fronts of Zalambasa, Tsorona, Rama, Adawala, Haret, Maikuhli, Maihutsa, and Zibangadana, while emphasizing the point that the main target of the full-scale offensive is actually in the direction of Adiabo. The statements also revealed that Tigray Defense Forces have neutralized the first round of offensive by the state joint military campaign. Member of Tigray Central Command Getachew Reda said the offensive launched by Eritrea was a continuation of its genocidal campaign against the people of Tigray. In a media briefing earlier today, Getachew stated that the attack by Eritrean forces was assisted by Ethiopian forces as well as Amhara forces and Fano Vigilante Group.
Member of Tigray Central Command Getachew Reda said Eritrea has launched a full-scale offensive on Tigray on multiple fronts from Takaza to Irob. Briefing the media today, Getachew said Eritrean Defense Forces have launched a full-scale war along with the Ethiopian forces and Amhara Special Forces, as well as Fano Vigilante Group.
They've started an offensive today morning. As you all know, the Eritrean government has been carrying out massive conscription and has called its reservists, including the elderly beyond the age of 60 and 70. Eritrean army, along with what is left to Ethiopian forces, has started a full-scale offensive to eliminate the people of Tigray. The attack is on all fronts.
Getachew said fighting is underway in Maikuhli, Zibangadana, Adawala, Rama, Tsorona, and Zalambasa. He also stated that Ethiopia's Eastern Command, significant elements of Northwestern Command, and 3 commando divisions have been deployed alongside Eritrean forces.
The Eastern Command had already crossed the Eritrea. 2 corps of Northwestern Command and Amhara Special Forces and Fano, the raw elements of Fano that have taken special training in Eritrea. They have launched what they call last offensive to eradicate the people of Tigray.
Getachew Reda stated that this round of offensive will also be neutralized as previous offensives that were waged on the people of Tigray by Ethiopia, Eritrean, and Amhara forces.
International Commission for Human Rights Experts on Ethiopia released its first report on Monday and said it has grounds to believe atrocities that amount to war crimes and crimes against humanity were committed in the 2-year-long war on Tigray. Chairperson for the Commission, Kari Berry Murungi, also warned of further atrocity crimes and civilian suffering, attributing to the resumption of hostilities last month. Sarah Kalali has the report.
The International Commission for Human Rights Experts on Ethiopia released a report on Monday saying that they have found evidence of widespread violations and had grounds to believe these violations amount to war crimes and crimes against humanity. The commission, comprised of 3 independent rights experts, said that atrocities ranging from intentional starvation, extrajudicial killings, and rape had been committed on a staggering scale in the ongoing war on Tigray. The commission also added that they have found grounds to believe the Ethiopian government was behind ongoing crimes against humanity in Tigray. The Commission said that debilitating conditions in Tigray were caused by the Ethiopian government, saying that the government and its allies have denied the 6 million people living in Tigray of basic services such as access to internet and banking, as well as the ongoing denial and obstruction of humanitarian assistance into Tigray. With a resumption of hostilities that shattered a 5-month-long humanitarian truce last month, in her statement, Commissioner Kari Betty Murungi said that there is a very real risk of further civilian suffering and further atrocity crimes to possibly take place. The Commissioner also said that humanitarian conditions in Tigray were shocking in terms of scale and duration, and said that the Ethiopian government was using starvation as a method of warfare.
Maternal mortality has shown a 5-fold increase in Tigray according to a study by Bureau of Health in collaboration with Mekelle University and Tigray Health Research Institute. The study also shows a 3-fold increase in the death of infants, while mortality for children under 5 has gone 2-fold. Salwar Kalama has more.
The health system in Tigray has been damaged by the war and the siege that followed it, as the Allied forces looted and destroyed health facilities and the Ethiopian government blocked basic services from entering the region. As a result, more than 80% of the health system in Tigray has been collapsed, leading to a health crisis of millions and eventual death toll. According to a study made by Tigray Bureau of Health in collaboration with Mala University and Tigray Health Research Institute in 31 districts of 6 zones, maternal and child mortality has increased rapidly following the war. The study shows that 840 mothers out of 100,000 have died as a result of child labor, making five-fold increase as compared to previous studies in 2020. Dr. Awal Yamana, a presenter focusing on maternal mortality, stated that the study has covered 1,089 households living in 121 different vicinities.
قدم هذه تناي تجراي بستاتستيكال ايجنسي صنعت تجابرة 286 يبصح نيرو أو كلتشين.
According to the study made by Tigray Statistical Agency, maternal mortality rate had reached 186 per 100,000 in 2020. An even earlier study in 2015 showed that mortality rate had been 266 per 100,000. However, our current studies show that maternal mortality has increased by 4.5 to 5-fold when compared to earlier studies. This figure of maternal mortality rate is similar to the way it was in 2000, taking us 22 years back.
Another presenter in the study, focusing on child mortality, Dr. Girmatzion Fisaha, stated that 59 out of 1,000 children have died in the study area following the war, which has made a 3-fold increase for infants under a month and 2-folds for children under 5 years.
The children died of breathing difficulties during birth. Next to that, they died of issues related to starvation and malnutrition, as well as diseases that cause diarrhea. This is what we found during our study of mortality of children under 5 within the period of the ongoing siege.
Dr. Hagos Godefai, a participant in the panel discussion, also stated that the study shows the effects of collapsed health system due to the war on Tigray.
After the war, almost all mothers are giving birth at home, as there are no health services and facilities at the moment. This has led to the aggravated maternal and child mortalities more than ever. This clearly shows that it is one of the surest results of war.
Dr. Hagos also added that the health system in Tigray needs to revive in order to save the lives of the thousands dying and the millions at the brink.
A Tigray mother, like all mothers, is irreplaceably precious. Mothers should no more die any longer as they have died in thousands so far. We need a project that facilitates this.
On a digital press briefing held today with U.S. Department of State Africa Regional Media Hub, U.S. Special Envoy for the Horn of Africa Mike Hammer said that the United States was aware of the movement of Eritrean troops into Tigray and that it strongly condemns the act. Ambassador Mike Hammer also noted that the presence of Eritrean troops further complicates and inflames an already disastrous situation and that all external forces needed to avoid fueling the war on Tigray.
We've been tracking Eritrean troop movements across the border. They are extremely concerning and we condemn it. All external foreign actors should respect Ethiopia's territorial integrity and avoid fueling the conflict. We couldn't be any clearer. We've said this repeatedly. We will encourage those that might be able to communicate directly with Asmara that this is of extreme concern and must stop. I'm not going to lean forward in terms of other measures that we might be able to undertake, but really this is a conflict from which Ethiopians, Tigrayans, Afars, Amharans have suffered greatly. And the presence of Eritrean troops in Ethiopia only serves to complicate matters and to inflame an already tragic situation.
Arbitrary detentions, mass killings, and forced displacement have been rampant in Western Tigray since the start of the war. Survivor of ethnic-based mass killing in Western Tigray says he witnessed 21 ethnic Tigrayans being thrown into the Kaza River with their hands tied back. Abra Gabratinsay has the details.
Tigrai is one of the more than 2 million people who left Western Tigray, either forcibly expelled or fled the gruesome atrocities in the area. He is now sheltered at Maiweni IDP camp in Magale, the capital of Tigray. Tigrai says he has suffered a lot in cold cell in Humora, where he saw 21 ethnic Tigrayan prisoners being taken at night with their hands tied back and never returned, and he later knew that they were thrown into Tigray River.
We were 28 in one prison room, and only 7 of us remained at the end. The armed men from the Amhara expansionist groups came every night to take them and never returned them. They threw them into the Tigray River with their hands tied back, as we learned later. 21 of the 28 prisoners in one cell had to face this fate. What saddens me most is that there was an old man with his son, and they threw both of them into the river. His son was a school principal in Humora. They used to beat us with a stick every day in the prison. No single youth returned from the prison. All of them were thrown into the river.
The survivor also said that the forces targeted the rich men more, and they were saying that they would not waste a bullet to kill Tigrayans, rather they would throw them into the Tigray River.
Investors were targeted more. There were 4 investors from my cadre imprisoned with me. They took all of them and they disappeared. The prison guards had 3 separate rooms where they would select individuals from each cell and make them ready for execution. Other armed men would come at night and take them in their cars. The forces were saying that they wouldn't waste a bullet to kill Tigrayans, rather they would throw them into the river.
Tigray also says arresting ethnic Tigrayans was everyday phenomenon in Adavai, from where he was taken to a prison in Humora town, administrative seat of the western zone of Tigray. He says armed men came to his home at night and took his neighbor and him out, saying they were juntas and they had guns, and they killed his neighbor on the road with a gunshot. Tigray adds he suffered a lot in the extremely hot prison cell with his hands tied back for 36 hours and abandoned without food and drink.
It was on the 27th of July, 10 a.m. at night, that armed men came and took me out, saying I was a veteran and had a gun, so I didn't have any. We were 2 of us, and they boarded us on a car and drove us from Adavai towards Humora. They pulled over on the road halfway to Humora and told us to get out of the car. They killed my neighbor with a gunshot on his forehead, and they took me to Humora and threw me into prison cell. They tied my hands back and kept me for 36 hours without food and drink. Now my left hand and right leg are almost paralyzed.
The witness also says that he was threatened and beaten a lot even after he was released a month later from Humora, and he was arrested for another month in Adavai. He says the invading forces treated ethnic Tigrayans inhumanly. They killed innocent civilians and they prohibited burying their bodies.
When they first arrived, they killed dozens of innocent civilians. For example, Muruz and Biroso among the ones I saw. They prohibited burying. Their bodies were eaten by hyenas and dogs. I saw a dog holding a man's hand. It is horrific. They treated Tigrayans not as humans, but as savages.
Living conditions in IDP camps across the state continue to deteriorate as displaced persons suffer from lack of food, medication, and adequate shelter. Our reporters spoke to Harifaya Abarra, an IDP with multiple chronic illnesses, who says conditions in the IDP camp have become beyond bearable. Meron Yaman.
Harifa Barra is an IDP in Ma'ala who was displaced from Abdul Rafi. He says he had to face brutal treatments in the hands of Amhara militia, including being held captive in a military camp for a period of 3 months. Harifa suffers from diabetes, nerve illness, and arthritis. However, he says the complete depletion of medical supplies caused by the ongoing siege has deprived him of access to the required treatments.
I suffer from diabetes, nerve illness, and arthritis. My hands and legs are completely swollen. I can move them easily. However, medical supplies are all depleted and I am unable to get treatment. We only get painkillers at the hospital. It's almost been 5 months since I stopped taking my medication. Although there are medical experts capable of treating us, medical supplies are insufficient.
Harifa also says that siege-induced lack of food throughout the IDP centers and the whole Tigray has had a horrendous impact on their livelihoods, especially for the ones with chronic illnesses like himself. He also says that the IDP community has been facing severe challenges to get food and potable water.
The food we're getting is below sufficient, and for chronically ill people like us, it is even worse. We usually get food aid once 4 and 5 months, and each person only gets 15 kilograms of wheat. I'm not even allowed to consume wheat products as I am a diabetic patient. What is more, we have to travel an hour and a half on foot to fetch potable water.
Harifa adds that the plastic tents they live in create moisture at night and tend to be cold. He says they had a hard time due to the rainy season as it drips through their tents and floods their shelter with water.
It gets very cold at night as these are plastic tents. Especially with my illness, it's hard for me to tolerate the cold at night. During the rainy season, water drips through the tents, filling our shelters with water.
Lastly, Harifa urged the international community to take actions that go beyond the usual statements of concerns and save the millions of lives of civilians throughout Tigray.
The international community is just standing by doing no meaningful action. Its condemnation has not gone beyond words. People here need urgent assistance. We need peace and stability.
That's it for me and the whole team here on Tigrai Television. Thank you for tuning in. Bye for now.
ህዝብ መንግስትን ትግራይ ብማሕበረሰብ ዓለም ዝቐረበ ጻውዒ ሰላም ተቐቢሎም ምላሽ ኣብ ዝጽበይሉ እዋን ጸላእቲ እዚ መጠነ ሰፊሕ መጥቃዕቲ ምጅማሮም እንታይ እዩ ዘመላኽት ተኻልኣይ ሕቶ ድማ ሕዚ ጸላእቲ ኣብ ህዝቢ ትግራይ ብዋናነት ትኹረት ዝገበረሉ ኣንፈት መጥቃዕቶም ናበይ ዘምርሕ ተባሂሉ ይሕሰብ ዝሰልሰ ሕቶ ህዝቢ ትግራይ ንምርግጋጽ መሰል ዓርሰ ውሳን እንድሕንነትን ብጽንዓትን ጅግንነትን እናተቃለሰ ይዝርከብ እዚ ቃልሲ ብዝበለጸ ንዝበለጸ ዓወት ተዓወት መወዳእቱ ክበጽሕ እዚ ቃልሲ ተጠናኺሩ ክቕጽል ንህዝቢ ትግራይ ዘለዎ መልእኽቲ እንታይ ይመስል
ጸላእቲ ቅንያቱ ዝተገበርዎ ተደጋጋሚ ፈተነ ብጅግና ሰራዊት ትግራይ ከም ዝፈሸለ ዝፍለጥ እዩ ብስዕረቶም ዘይተቐበሉ ጸላእቲ ግን ዳግም ሓድሽ ሙሉእ ዝተዋደደ ወራርን ጀሚሮም ኣለሞ ዕላማ እዚ ሓድሽ ወራር እንታይ እዩ ዝመስል ዝብል ሕቶ ኣለኒ خلاي ህዝብን ሰራዊትን ኤርትራ ውልቀ መላኽ ኢሳያስ በሃጉን ምዕዋስ ናጽነት ኤርትራ ምዘቕበሉ ሓይልታት ዝተማለን ዝተዋደደን ጥምረት ፈጢሩ ህዝብ ትግራይ ንምጽናት ዘካይዶ ዘሎ ወራር ከመይ ይኮን ዝግባእ ወይ ከመይ ክቃለሱ ዝግባእ ዝብል خلاي ሕቶ ኣለኒ ቀኒለ
ጸላእቲ ካብ 18 ናሓሰ ጀሚሩ ኣብ ዳርጋው ኩሉ ከባቢታት ትግራይ كم تنسون زولوم تقرأي ملء هانم قصار زرعي تقرأي عتقي نمرقاف زعلمة أمبيش يسكب بحال وفري غيرهم يم كم تسفلت بدو استقبر من قصاص سالسا معلتو فشلو سراتنا وناو سلامت كعداتيو بركت زول كاوتات تقاطروا الهنتات لي دحريو بفلاي دحر 24 نحاسه سراي شعبيان سرايت ابين بستوادد منقدي زغورو متقعتلو بفلايت نوح غزي زوسده نوح زوله غزي زوسده بركت زوله سرايت تساتفلو ناي مكلاخل مسمرنا سيركا نددبيت انفت اتخاس قده توصاصرخا مستكاو اريابون شركه قسقس تحاسبو زنبر حيلي تحاوسخا دحر ما خاب ጸለምቲ ሙሉ ተቋጽሩ ካብ ጸለምቲ ናብ ጽምብላ ደዩ ተታሒዞም ካብ ሽረ أنا وخالوت كوابتها التجراي نوقص عرض على من قصاص ينيرو بتوساقي كاب وجن واج نعبر قال جز متقعت غيرها حزون بسامر بالكان مقالنا يمتهم حسب زحزة من قصاص ينيرو بوجن من الشعبية أبزالم بسا أب راما أبصرنا كبابي نوح جزء عن حدا بداواتي كايد نيرو حزون سف حزبنا حيلنا يمقربن ناي متقعتي بوزيشن ناي محزن هونتات تدغاغام رئي نيرو كم تبتدغاغام نا زغلص زمصه ابز حلف عسران قال معلتي صلاه زغورم وبلتسمون مقالنا متودلتي نيرو تخدسون كم زي اتو طرح زي كونس زبحال بروجريسون كغور كم زي يخول بتغبار استرغاغصلوت وانا حيلهم حرحراي توعلو هونتات تفطروا إذا قد عايزي ما قالنا يمتاو زي متاو عتقنا يمفتحنا زي مفتح زي كونس بتناتهم قمت حنساون حوارو قبرز قبونا هلونا زي ما تاينا وزي النجر زاتو لهونتات هلو تو بقمقامهم بركت بلا حيل توغي بوغن منقست شعبية قدمون حيلتات يقربيو قن حيلتات مبزحتيو ناي محارفو لي حيلن ناي إثيوبيا مكلاكاي سرايت حيلن قدموا بمتاو السوم بزغورو بزخفلو واغا عوتنا يمقرمات زيوانو وزح زبال منقصاص بزبال لوط كم صدخلو عقمي وسكع زي تراين سون بركت زول كفلو سراوتات تسلفي بخلت جنبار استودو عبيتي احدوتاتي ووافرو استرغاغام كبر زنوره منقصاص كم تزبلنايو وتقدماي معرف وفرم از مقالاتها عتقنا من رغاف زبال وفرم مولو فشيلي دو كم زي بلو ترغاغام غلصنا نيرنا توانا ديت حزب تግራይ كمبركهون سلا زي كونه كطف سلا زونه زونه هناي حزب تግራይ ناي مخته ملكت زبال كطف له زلونه سلا زنوره نزو غمتاتهم زقاقاوس نيرم سوناي غيزي ጉዳይ ተዘይ ኮይኑ ናውታት ክመጹ ከም ዝغلو صبينا نردأ نيرنا بفلاي ناي ددبيت وغن ددبيت نورا منقصاص بركت بلا ناي ابي حيلي استخرتما عسرت تاشحاتي سئلو او بركت بلا تدفيو تدناغيروس تتاليلوس تقديدوس زمصه ميلشان فانون محراون سفحو توقعي او زنبر طفات بطعمي زغرمي سرايتنا بفصوم جግነት ተቃሊቱ መሬቱ አይተን ክፍንጥራ ሆነ ሰው ዝመሮ ጾታ ጸላንታ ተትዩ ዝግቦም ወቅዕትና ሀበ ትግራይ ከም ተተረጋጋም ንብሎ መቃብር ጸላእት እንበር ማዕንደር ከም ዘይሆን ብደን ብንምርአይ ዝኸለ ስራሕ ተሰርሒ ካብ ዘይቋረጸ ድሕሪኡን ዘይቋረጸ መጥቃዕቲ ብወገን ጸላኢ ሙሉእ ጸለም ተቆጣጺርካ ተተኻኢሉ ንማእኸላይ ትግራይ ናይ ምእተው ተስ ብተንቤን ተስ ብጽምብላ ገርካን ሽረ ናብ ካልኦት ቦታታት ናይ ምቆጻር ድሌት ብፍላይ ድማ نحن نقول منقصاص نمعقات علمه تمست شعبيات واردهم زقوروا زنوروا في لايب وجن أداه وزنوره منقصاص نمقص على بتعم خبيدوهم مثل زنوره سرايتنا بزر جግነት عبيت كساراتنا تقولوا ناو ذريت ملص لخناتات زنوره تنا يصلمت منقصاص قصلهم اليوم نيرو سو كاب قدم سنسته معلت جميرو وتنا يصلمت منقصاصهم عاقتنا እንካብት ማን ንጎ ጀሚሩ ጸረ መጥቃዕቲ ንዝገበርናሉ በጸረ መጥቃዕቲ ድማ ጸላኢ አዚው ከቢድ ዝባል ኪሳራ አስተጎልወሉ አው ትሕቲ ዝኖራ ብርክት ዝበላ ከባቢታት አው ትሕቲ ሰራዊትና እውን ዝኣተዋሉ ሁነታት ኣሎ ተዝርዝር ወታደራዊ ኮማንድ ብሰዓቱ ክገልጾ ስለ ዝኾነ ውዝሕ የድልን ሓቂ ግን ጸላእትና ብተደጋጋሚ ዝገበርዎም ፈተነታት ብዙሑን ከም ዘይዋጾም زرعي اللي هينو قد ما ከምቲ ቅድሚ ሕዚ ተደጋጋሚ ንገልጾ ዝነበርና ናይ ኣብይ መንግስቲ ሰላም ዝበሃል ፃውዒት